Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for May 2nd, 2025. It's Season 4, Episode 153. I am MayorWatt. I run ohmTown.com, and along with the Sentient AI, who's not available again, there's a glitch in our time machine that's not allowing us to sync up when I go back in time. We're going to talk about 10 articles, starting with world's largest wildlife crossing, plan to ban plants within 5 feet of homes, Unsold Cybertrucks, Beeware of escaped honeybees. There was a busy Maryland teen, a Tudum Fan Event. You can't park that ship here, sir. AI cracks Mars mystery, 5,000-year-old bread recipe, and a 4-day work week's impact. That and more. Some context, anecdote, maybe some complaining. I don't know. If you're here in chat, then awesome. Oh, I didn't put it in ohmTown. Everything's powered by ohmTown.com. Come and hang out with us in chats, plural, YouTube and Twitch. That'd be great. See you on the other side of our intro music. All right. Well, I'm not even going to put this into ohmTown. It's already embedded in the show notes. The show notes for all of the articles gives you a link, my title, but a link to the source information. Go over there, over to YouTube. Be sure to follow us, like, and subscribe. See, I don't do that same stuff here on Twitch as I do when I'm streaming to both at the same time, YouTube and Twitch. But I don't do show notes on Twitch because after 60 days they delete it regardless of me even paying for it. I mean, it's 60 days because I pay for it. But anyway, be sure to follow us on Twitch and on YouTube. It helps me out, helps the channel out, helps all of the shows out. I am trying to do this full time. But mayoral duties keep me from streaming all the time, except for right now. I'm actually doing more streaming starting tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff, particularly the Summer Game Fest and a bunch of other demos and games, and talking about the news and things like that. But everything except politics. Although every time I mention politics in my discussion, I can't promote the show. They block it for whatever reason. They actually call it political advertising or promotion or something like that. I can't remember what the terminology is, but no, I don't talk about politics in the show, like espousing a particular candidate as one superior than the other or whatever. It's just not what I do. Anyway, I talk about science, technology, and society, not politics. All right, so let's get into it. The first article is the world's largest wildlife crossing is almost ready to help animals cross 10 lanes of the 101 freeway. The article is over at jalopnik.com, put together by Logan K. Carter. And yeah, I guess there's going to be an embankment that leads to means for wildlife to cross over on the other side of the 101 because animals are running across the freeway and getting trapped in the median, between the medians, or I should say trapped in the lanes because of K-rail, and they basically get hit, and it sucks for everything involved here. So at any rate, 3 years ago on Earth Day 2022, the region began taking steps to restore these habitats by starting reconstruction or construction of the world's largest, not the world's largest, construction on the largest wildlife crossing in the world. It says here, the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing in Agoura Hills. The wildlife crossing will allow animals to cross over one of the busiest roadways in the world that sees around 300,000 travelers daily and connects Santa Susana Mountains, Simi Hills, and Santa Monica Mountains. I flipped them because I knew what was coming. Anyway, the project was delayed by a year due to heavy rains in 2022 and 2023, and now slated for completion towards the end of 2026. You'd think that they'd be able to do that faster. It's like prefab concrete spans, that just do it somewhere else and then drop them in. You could even drop them in, bring them up this road and leave the freeway running, for crying out. Well, I know you can't, not while they're depositing stuff, but anyway, kind of weird. So phase 2 of the project is set to begin soon and will include a temporary closure of Agura Road, so the roadway can be covered with a tunnel and soil collected from Malibu Lake area. And the entire crossing is projected to be completed towards the end of 2026. So it's going to be pretty cool. So animals will be able to run over this. I wonder if it'll turn into a little ecosystem where predators are chasing after prey, like caught in this little box, you know? Yeah, might be interesting. The next article is over in Technology Today. California plans to ban plants within 5 feet of homes. The safety overlooks some important truths about flammability. One of the most striking patterns in the aftermath of many suburban fires is how much unburned green vegetation remains amid the wreckage of burned neighborhoods. The reality, though, well, I don't know. These people, the people that are over at the conversation, they do this kind of deep dive into things, and they usually have some type of context for their particular argument. Max Moritz and Luca Carminani over at the conversation put this article together. It was edited by Stephanie Baum and reviewed by Andrew Zenin. So, as scientists who study how vegetation ignites and burns, they recognize that the well-maintained plants and trees can actually help protect homes from wind-blown embers and slow the spread of fire in some cases. So they're concerned about the new wildlife protection regulations being developed by the state of California that would prohibit almost all plants and other combustible material within 5 feet of homes, an area known as Zone 0. So they say research on how vegetation can reduce the risk is a relatively new area of study. However, the findings from plant flammability studies and examination of patterns of where vegetation in homes survive large urban fires highlight its importance. My problem with this is that not everybody takes care of their stuff. And so if you ban 5 feet away, then there isn't anything that's laying right up against the house and just kind of drying out and dying. So I don't know. They say how a plant bursts into flames when living plant material is heated by a nearby energy source, such as a fire. The moisture inside it must be driven off before it can ignite. That evaporation cools the surrounding area and lowers the plant's flammability. But it's not about thriving living material. It's about the stuff when it dies. And that happens more often than I suspect. Most people accept, particularly in a desert-like area. So they say that California's proposal emphasizes on a highly prescriptive vegetation removal instead of on maintenance is overly simplistic without complementary requirements for hardening the homes themselves. Well, it needs to be 5 feet away and then stone put around it at the base so that nothing can grow there, die, and become kindling. That's the main issue here. And having seen various other places where, because there's nothing pressed up against the house, it didn't catch fire. Yeah, I'm already sold on the policy being sound. So let's keep going, though. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. Unsold Cybertrucks are piling up at a decaying U.S. shopping mall. This has been discussed before as time has gone on. We've been talking about this every once in a while. I mean, the thing about it is, I think that a lot of manufacturers store their product somewhere when it's in transit, being prepared for transport, etc. I don't know if that's what this really is. That said, turns out Cybertruck graveyard isn't a permitted use of commercial property. Louis Prada over at Vice.com. And frankly, billionaires don't have a moral compass except whatever their fascination is. And so all that will need to happen is this mall gets bought and turned into a legitimate storage facility for decaying U.S. shopping mall to Cybertruck storage facility. That's really what's going to happen, you know, and the billionaire isn't going to give a shit. You know, it doesn't matter to them. So unsold Cybertrucks are piling up at a decaying U.S. shopping mall. Again, it's by Louis Prada over at Vice.com. It says that it was first reported by Automotive News and demonstrated in a recent Instagram reel. Hundreds of unsold Cybertrucks are now baking in the Michigan sun outside a shuttered Bed Bath & Beyond in the Detroit suburb. It says, oof, that's a grim sentence. Yeah, Bed Bath & Beyond died on the vine mainly because greed and the ever-increasing requirement to soak 10% more every quarter, if not more, out of pocketbooks. It became an untenable position. You cannot have constant growth. It's just not possible. It's ridiculous. Anyway, it turns out Cybertruck Graveyard isn't a permitted use of commercial property, nor is it an attractive one. The fleet of Gen X or midlife crisis mobiles is what they say in this article, standing motionless, looking ready to pounce at any second to lecture you on testosterone replacement therapies and so on. The angle of this is wrong. I mean, to me, it just basically says, how are these being produced and not being sold? People are buying them, I suspect. I mean, it's still a stock that people are chomping at the bit to buy. Maybe it's fear of missing out or, you know, fandom, you know, zealotry kind of shit. But anyway, won't even go into the rest of this article because it basically talks about Musk more than what this represents, which is manufacturing that is supported by what? I don't know many people buying, but hey, maybe their numbers are different. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. 14 million honeybees escaped from an overturned truck in Washington state. Local beekeepers helped corral them. Now, most of the bees have been recovered and the road is open to the public again, but 14 million bees escaped. Sarah Hashemi over at the Smithsonian Magazine.com site put this article together. Yeah. Kind of interesting. So they say here that the bees made their escape as a truck carrying 70,000 pounds of hives rolled over, releasing them into the wild. We talked about this when that happened, but they say at first the department estimated 250 million bees had gotten loose, but it later corrected that figure, lowering it to 14 million. Thank you to those who challenged the math and helped to get closer to the true number. Now, I said 250 million bees, that's insane, but that truck actually had a carrying capacity of something like 80,000 pounds. And so 250 million bees in their hives actually would equate to that. It was quite interesting, at least based on my rough numbers. I didn't sit there and, you know, break out the physics of this. More than 24 beekeepers alongside deputies and emergency responders came to assist at the scene, which unfolded near Linden, a town close to the Canadian border, and several of the emergency responders were stung. Dear God, no, not stung. First responders. Are you okay? It sucks to get stung, but that's kind of how you find out if you're allergic. Yeah. So the goal is to save as many of the bees as possible. Basically, they had to find a whole bunch of hives, repair them, find the queens. There it goes right there. Rehive and find their queen. You need the queen, otherwise the bees will just fly around aimlessly, pretty much. They said they had an incredible privilege to help rescue millions of honeybees, and these are European honeybees, not there's domestic honeybees, but they're not as efficient at pollinating as European honeybees. And that's what these are. So they're not even indigenous to the United States. Not based on what I've read and been told, but that's okay. This isn't the first bee escape in Washington. In 2015, nearly 14 million bees escaped as well. All right. A tipped over truck near Seattle and started stinging people. Well, they're pissed off. They were driven away from their homes, to some other location. Anyway, this is pretty cool. And apparently if you wear a suit and or have a smoker, you can kind of make them chill and they become a little more docile. So don't piss them off, right? All right. The next article is over on FourWheelTech. You know what? I need to pull up the chat. There we go. So there was a busy Maryland teen allegedly breaking into 121 cars in a single night. A 16-year-old is facing a slew of charges as the Laurel Police Department continues to investigate the May 4th incident. So Andy Kolmowitz over at jalopnik.com put the article together. When he was arrested, police say the teen was in possession of numerous credit cards, over 24 vehicle keys, and several stolen items. And now they're looking to identify the rightful owners of the stolen property and return it to them, according to the official statement in the department's Facebook page. Police also say they've identified 2 of the teen's accomplices, and they're now slated to be arrested. And police aren't releasing the kid's name since he's a minor, but they'll say that he faces charges of motor vehicle theft as well as multiple counts of theft from an automobile. I don't know. So yeah, this sucks. I mean, whatever the purpose of this was, they were eventually going to get caught because we're in a ever-growing surveillance state. There are cameras everywhere, from rings to non-ring door cameras, to road-based, what do they call it? Well, city surveillance, basically, city and state. So they say the teen's lack of age, lack of a prior record, and the fact that they hadn't committed a violent crime means that he's probably not going to be punished too badly for his alleged crimes. Speaking at the press conference that was also posted on Facebook, they said that the kid only spent 5 hours in custody before he was ordered to be released by the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. But this could be a gateway if he's not, course corrected. That sucks. That somebody feels compelled to do that, one reason or another. Usually it's maladaptive behavior because they lack coping skills to resolve whatever issues might be present. But you'd be surprised what hunger and peer pressure and a kid's life in a particular city, downward pressure could cause them to do. Yeah, context matters is what I say. So let's keep going. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. The 5 biggest takeaways from Netflix's Tudum, fan event. I thought this was interesting because it says Netflix gave subscribers a first look at some highly anticipated projects at its Tudum event. It premiered footage from projects including Stranger Things Season 5, Frankenstein, Lady Gaga performed to promote Wednesday Season 2. And it was basically there to unveil all of this new material that's coming out of Netflix. Jenna Ortega has this skill where she doesn't blink. She can keep her eyes unblinking for an extended period of time. And they learned it when she was doing the Wednesday show, the first season. Eamon Jacobs over at BusinessInsider.com put the article together. So Tudum is a way of generating hype around Netflix movies and shows that's a little more exciting than just releasing a trailer on YouTube. Think Comic-Con, but for Netflix. So here are some of the biggest takeaways according to this article. Again, Eamon Jacobs over at Business Insider put it together. The final season of Stranger Things has 3 release dates. The first trailer for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein starring Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi was shown at Tudum. This will be a fun watch. But Guillermo del Toro has this amazing mind to make everything fantastical, even in the likes of something like Frankenstein being fantastical already. This sends it over the top. A new Squid Game Season 3 trailer teased the end of the games, and I don't even like the show, so I'm not yucking your yum. It's just not for me. The first Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery teaser showed Daniel Craig returning as Benoit Blanc. So a Knives Out mystery is a series that is kind of like Glass Onion, but this is Wake Up Dead Man. A different take. So Tudum revealed the first trailer of Rian Johnson's Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, to see Daniel Craig reprise his role as the detective Benoit Blanc for a third time. Predictably, the star-studded cast, including Jeremy Renner, Josh O'Connor, and Glenn Close, are at the center of the mystery involving a murder in a church. Lady Gaga performed to promote Wednesday Season 2, and that's about it. That's all 5 of theirs, but there's always some more detail in the shows, or in the articles that we talk about here in Non Sequitur News. This is a daily show, but mayoral duties have kept me from doing the show on time, so I'm in a time machine, and I'm ripping through these. I should be done with the second, and then I'll turn the dial on the time machine and move us to the third, and then hopefully I'll be ready to do the fourth shortly hereafter. And then I'll post them all over to YouTube and as the podcast, so we'll play catch up. Sorry, folks. It's tough being mayor. 1,000 bosses pulling me in different directions. But I would like to do the show more often and longer. So be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. That kind of thing helps support the show. That would be great. Tell a friend. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. Cargo ship crashes in a man's yard after a crewman allegedly falls asleep. That's what Johan Helberg found outside his home in Binsett, a village on Norway's Trondheim fjord. When a 440-foot vessel ran aground just after sunrise, the ship NCL Sultan plowed into the shore and stopped a few yards from Heidelberg's bedroom window. He didn't even hear it happen. They were sleeping soundly, deeply, and then they heard a dinging sound, which they wondered might be their doorbell, but they don't really like to get up. So that's what he came out to find. Wow. So Ashley Fike over at Vice.com put the article together. Yeah. I sure he'd come outside, but no. So I called him and told him he had a visitor, said the neighbor, Jostine Jorgensen, who had seen the whole thing unfold and ran over to ring Helberg's bell. So Helberg had his own theory about what went wrong. He said ships need to make 2 course adjustments to safely enter the fjord. The Sultan adjusted once, but not twice. Despite the surreal sight outside the window, he kept calm, impressed myself by staying cool. I've seen and been through worse, they say. Yeah, this picture doesn't really do it justice. This ship is huge. It's a 440-foot vessel that just kind of plowed right into his front yard or backyard. I don't know. This looks like the backyard of his house. But the view is amazing. He looks out over the fjord. Let's keep going. The next article is over in Technology Today. AI cracks Mars mystery. $500,000 streaks solved without a drop of water. A Martian mystery decades in the making might finally be solved. The streaky slopes spotted on Mars since the 70s, once suspected of being signs of salty water and potential habitability, are now thought to be the result of dry dust avalanches triggered by wind, impacts, or shifting rocks. It says mysterious streaks on Olympus Mons. So, yeah, to me, that's what it looks like as well. Me suspecting that this was water was never really an option. To me, what I see is sedimentation of different materials based on their mass. But maybe that's not what it is. I don't know. European Space Agency over at scitechdaily.com put the article together. The only way to really tell would be to go there and actually look at that, the different layers and the transitions. And you can actually see that happen when you take sand of different size, put it in a glass jar, different colors, and you'll see it separate. Strange and dark streaks over the slopes of Olympus Mons, the largest volcano on Mars. The marks were captured in stunning detail by a camera called Cassis on board the European Space Agency's ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter. Again, the article is by European Space Agency and posted at scitechdaily.com. So they say that they're dry dust avalanches. Yeah, those little black streaks that are running down it. Researchers turned to a machine learning algorithm to scan and catalog slope streaks in over 86,000 satellite images. Scientists combined several decades worth of orbital data and neural power of deep learning to produce a global map with almost 500,000 streak features across Mars. So the study found that these winding features most likely form when layers of fine dust suddenly slide off steep terrain. Multiple triggers could unleash this process, such as falling rocks, small meteoroid impacts, or wind gusts causing shockwaves and shaking loose dust. We see that happen here on Earth. A town just got obliterated entirely because a glacier melted below a mountainside and slid over a giant mud flow, wiping out the entire town. So, yeah. I never really thought that this was water. To me, it doesn't look like it flows like water. But anyway, let's keep going. The next article is over on the Wanted channel. 5,000-year-old bread recipe recreated in Turkey, and the locals can't get enough. A bread made from ancient grains is rising again in Turkey, and it's a big hit. A bread made from ancient grains is the deck statement. Says that it's a big hit. Natalia Mesa over at Gizmodo.com put the article together. This is apparently where the bread was originally excavated. Kaluba? I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I'll say Kaluba. Some 5,000 years ago, someone buried a piece of charred bread beneath the threshold of a house in what is now Eskişehir, in central Turkey. Archaeologists unearthed it in September 2024 during an excavation of Kaluba Hoyak, a Bronze Age settlement that has been under investigation for, for decades. The air is really dry here in the studio. It says, this is the oldest baked bread to have come to light during an excavation, and it has largely preserved its shape, according to Murat Turkteki, archaeologist and director of excavation, in an interview with AFP. So curious to see if the recipe could be recreated, local officials contacted Halk Ekmek, a bakery in Eskişehir. Since ancient emmer seeds are no longer available in Turkey, the bakers used kavilka wheat, a closely related variety, along with bulgur and lentils to approximate the original ingredients. And apparently it's delicious. 300 loaves of kaluba bread have been selling daily ever since. With municipal subsidies, the bread is sold for just 50 Turkish lira, or about $1.30. After another compelling aspect of the bread is that it's made from drought-resistant crops. So pretty neat. There's some more article over here to read about this, but I think I'm going to try and find this recipe and see if I can actually make it. We'll see. I don't know. Either that or I'll send it over to, what's his name? The guy who does the history of various foods. Oh God, I just forgot his name. Anyway, you can look it up. He's a very popular YouTuber, former Disney employee. Kind of went viral during the pandemic because he was downsized. Yeah, fired and then asked back later. Anyway, the next article is over, and it's the last article for the May 2nd episode of Non Sequitur News. It's over in Hatch Ideas. Every employee is on a 4-day week. Here's how eliminating a workday without cutting pay impacted hundreds of businesses. Working 1 day less per week improved revenue, retention, and employee health, according to a new study. A study of 245 businesses with more than 8,700 workers, a 4-day work week, had observable benefits, reduced burnout, improved mental and physical health, and fewer resignations. Over 90% of the companies that chose to pilot a 4-day work week chose to stick with it. And the others probably are exploiting their employees. I don't know. So the pilot programs have reached 8,700 employees around the world, including the US, UK, Brazil, and Ireland, and have lasted for at least 6 months at each company. On the employer side, the majority of the organizations that piloted the 4-day work week noticed improved bottom line metrics, including increased revenue and dwindling resignations. The results were so clear that over 90% of the more than 200 companies that started the 6-month trial in June 2023 were still on the 4-day workweek schedule a year later. So cloud computing provider Civo, with 84 employees, according to PitchBook, piloted the 4-day workweek in 2020, and implemented it as company policy in 2021. Civo CEO Mark Booth told the Register in April that the company has continued a 4-day workweek for the past 4 years after positive feedback. So they're working 10-hour days. So however long their lunch is, they're still probably doing 40 hours. It has disadvantages, according to the BBC. Reducing the work week by a day can lead to more intense workload on the remaining 4 days, potentially causing more employee stress. It really depends on if people do their work. How do I put this? If a generally accepted amount of work equates to 40 hours worth of work, which in certain sectors it's enumerated, it can be enumerated. It's like a Six Sigma thing. You can calculate what a time on task is, and you assign 40 hours worth of work. But if I do my work in 20 hours, where somebody else takes 40 hours and my quality is still good, what employers do is they say, I think we're going to jam more stuff onto your desk so that you do more work and I profit, but you don't profit. You're just doing a shit ton more work for your base pay. And that's it, because a lot of business owners are sociopaths. So they don't care. And that's demonstrated by various research studies. So the article continues on. There was a lot of me diatribe there, but in 2019, Microsoft Japan gave its 2,300 person workforce 5 Fridays off in a row in August without cutting their pay. Shouldn't. I mean, in one place that I am, one of the numbnuts there said that during the pandemic, since people aren't coming into work, that pay should be cut. To which I said, you're an idiot, because you're not paying me to travel to the job. You're paying me to do a job. I could do the job from anywhere. My work-life balance takes precedent. It really does. You shouldn't be a sociopath and just keep on chipping away at my tolerance. Anyway, 5 Fridays off in a row in August without cutting their pay. The 4 work weeks led to 40% more productivity, with employees taking off 25% less time during the trial. So it was promising findings. And there's more over at this article at Entrepreneur. Sharon Shibu put the article together. So according to the study, it says working 1 day less per week improved revenue retention and employee health. Shocking, I know. Well, we are going to work 1 day less, and that'll bring us back to the front page of ohmTown.com, which is the source of all of the news that we aggregate. So we get a bunch of stuff from a bunch of other sources aggregated into 6 main categories and 50 channels, and 7 of them have been turned into shows. So 6 weekly, 1 daily. That's Non Sequitur News. Anyway, welcome to ohmTown. See you later.